The Seattle Seahawks go on the road this week to face the Buffalo Bills, and even though it's most definitely a road game for Seattle, it's not quite a home game for Buffalo. I'd only call it about a half a home game. That's because it's being played in Toronto, Canada. Now, we do expect there to be more Bills fans there than Seahawks because of proximity, but not really a true home game. Seattle coach Pete Carroll says it feels like a bowl game. Of course, Carroll, plenty of college experience, plenty of experience with bowl games from his time at USC. Now, Seattle's installed as a 5.5-point favorite in this game. 43.5 is the total. The Seahawks have been playing some good football. They're now 8-5. They've won 4 out of the last 5, 58-0 last week over the Arizona Cardinals. It set all types of records. You know, largest margin of victory, obviously, in the history of the Seattle Seahawks franchise. My favorite little statistical oddity of that game. How about this? Pete Carroll. We mentioned Pete Carroll coached at USC. I believe 9 years he was at USC. And had some great teams, multiple national titles. Year in and year out, USC was a top 3 or 4 team while Pete Carroll was there. And like every college team, they played some real cupcakes in the 2 or 3 times a year. The paycheck games for the small school, you pay a San Jose State or somebody like that $500,000, $600,000 to come down to the Coliseum and get pounded 50-0 by USC. Every major college program does that. USC did it also. How about this? In Pete Carroll's entire coaching career, including all his time at USC, he's only had 1 game where the margin of victory has been greater than last week. The USC beat Washington State 66-0 one year. That's incredible to me because in college football, a team like USC, a powerhouse team like that, you always think of them winning about 1 game a year by 50 or 60 points. But turns out a 58-0 victory last week by the Seattle Seahawks over the Arizona Cardinals. Pete Carroll's second largest margin of victory in his coaching career. Incredible that. But, has that made Seattle a little overvalued here this week? They're a 5.5-point favorite on BETDAQ, and the Seahawks have not been the same team on the road this season. They're 2-5 on the road. Their 2 road wins, an ugly 16-12 win against the Carolina Panthers early in the season, and then they beat the Chicago Bears in overtime in their last road game. And Buffalo, even though they're 5-8, even though they've lost 5 out of the last 7, they're competitive. This is not a team that's getting blown out week in and week out. As a matter of fact, Buffalo would still be in playoff contention had they been able to pull out a home win over the St. Louis Rams last week. Really a tough loss for the Bills. Rams ended up coming from behind in the fourth quarter, winning that game 15-12, knocked the Bills out of the playoffs. Now, if I were a Bills fan, the main matchup I would be concerned about in this game is the Seattle rushing offense against the Buffalo rush defense, because Buffalo's actually played better the last month or so in the secondary. At the beginning of the season, this Buffalo defense was just bad all the way around, but the secondary's come around. The defense as a whole has been playing a little better. They're still extremely vulnerable against the run. 28th in the NFL in rush defense, and Seattle loves to run the football. They are a run-first offense, 4th in the NFL in rush yards per game. Marshawn Lynch, really an underrated running back. I know Seattle fans know full and well how good he is, but he's really a top 4, top 5 running back, maybe even better than that. And I don't think a lot of people, I think most people, your average NFL fan, might rank him in the 5 to 10 range. And when you look at the season that Marshawn Lynch is putting together this year, combine it with his play last year, you see that this guy is the elite of the elite in terms of running backs. And I do expect him to have good success against the Buffalo Bills defense. And Seattle, we know all about their defense. One of the best defenses in the league, probably the 3rd best defense in the league, in my opinion, behind Pittsburgh and San Francisco. Seattle's 2nd in points allowed, 3rd in total defense. They'll be without starting cornerback Brandon Browner again for this game, but Buffalo, they like to run the ball. We mentioned Seattle's a run-first offense, and even though Buffalo's passed it a little more than the Seahawks this year, Buffalo, they run the ball pretty well themselves with Fred Jackson, C.J. Spiller. They've been a top 10 rushing offense all year. And Seattle's a little bit better against the pass than they are against the run. They are allowing over 100 yards per game. I believe 10th or 11th in the NFL in rush defense, somewhere in that area still. The Seattle front 7 is stout. They're even better in the back end. They're an excellent defense. I do lean towards under 43.5 in this game because Buffalo, we mentioned they've been playing a little better on defense. I do expect Seattle to have success running the ball in this game, but they're going to run it plenty, which means their drives are probably going to take up some time. I think it's going to shorten the game a little bit. Expect a low-scoring game here. I like under 43.5. I also lean towards Buffalo in the points. Like I said a couple of minutes ago, I think that last week's result of 58-0, that might have Hey, I think Seattle's good. I mean, I'm now a believer in this Seattle Seahawks team. They're going to be tough in the playoffs, but they're not as good away from Seattle. And I just think it might be a good sell high opportunity with the Seahawks this week, coming off that 58-0 win. I do expect the Seahawks to win this game. I think Seattle money line is probably a winning bet. But again, 5.5. Seattle's played a lot of close football games this year because of the style they play. Their 2 road wins, we mentioned they're 2-5 on the road this season. Their 2 road wins, overtime against the Bears, a 4-point win against the Carolina Panthers. So if you think Seattle's going to beat a team handily on the road away from home, that'll be the first time that's happened this season. I'm not ready to say that's going to happen against the Buffalo Bills, who are probably a little bit better than their 5-8 record. So I do lean towards Buffalo plus 5.5 in this game and under 43.5.